With that, yeah, Paul, all you. I'll turn it over to you at this point.
Can you make me host so I can share my screen?
I can do anything that you'd like.
Thank you. So Michael already presented me. I'm Paula. I'm based in Portugal, part of the Explorer X team here. And we take care of Explorer X clients in Portugal, handling everything that they need and trying to show them the very best that our country has to offer. And now I'm going to share my screen with you so that we can look at a very brief presentation that will help you understand a little bit more about Portugal. So what makes Portugal so special? The people are genuine, they're friendly, they're kind. The ocean, half of the country is covered by the Atlantic Ocean, so there are amazing landscapes, views, sunsets. We have a very rich history, monuments, museums, architectural wonders everywhere. Time, yes, in Portugal, it feels like you have more time. You can relax more, things are slowly paced, lunches are super long. We have very unique traditions in Portugal, from fado to festivities of patron saints during the summer and spring, numerous carnivals and very unique carnivals in the north of Portugal. Gastronomy, we are the place for foodie lovers. So if you're a foodie lover, this is where you want to be. And the wine is also absolutely amazing and pretty well known almost all over the world. We're very authentic. We still have very genuine experiences, true to each region and to the country's traditions. And the landscape. The landscape in Portugal is very different from north to south, and there's a great variety. And now we're going to travel a bit back in time. Bear with me here as I move forward. Okay, so here you can see the Iberian Peninsula. And this is how it was long, long ago. The Iberian Peninsula was conquered by Celts, Romans, barbarians, Moors, but the Lusitanians, those that were native to the land, they resisted all of these invasions and they used the mountainous terrain in the north to help them. They also used bulls. It's a great tradition in Portugal, and there were many bulls. So they were used for battles. In the 11th century, Alfonso VI, he was the king of Leon and Castile, which you can see on the north of this Iberian Peninsula. He established the county of Portugal, which is this red part here that is outlined. So in 1139, the ruler of this county, Afonso Henriques, he was the son of the Princess of Leon, and he was on a Templar mission as a Christian knight. And he led the Lusitanians in a battle against the Moors, and he won. And he declared Portugal a separate kingdom. So that's pretty much when it all started. And he declared himself king. So shortly after, in 1143, Afonso VII, now of Leon and Castile, recognized Portugal as a separate independent kingdom. And to complete this officially, the Pope, Alexander III, declared Portugal's independence at that time. And this was in 1179. Before that, Lisbon had been conquered a little bit further south here. Évora, which is in the center of the Alentejo, was also conquered shortly after. And then by 1249, the Algarve was conquered. The Algarve was conquered. And basically what happened was that the full outline of Portugal was completely defined, and we were Europe's first state to actually establish its limits and keep them until today. So nothing has changed since 1249. We've maintained our borders, and we've maintained our entire continental country. And here you can see also the Azores and the Medeta Islands, and we'll go into that in a little bit. Until 1908, Portugal was a monarchy. Our last king was killed in 1908, King Charles. He was assassinated. And then there was, a bit of a Republican revolution and some complications, which are typical. And in 1932, Antonio Salazar took over as prime minister, and we lived under a dictatorship until 1974. At that time, there was another revolution and democracy was established, and the first elections took place. So we're a very new to democracy country, actually. And one of the most, sorry, go
Just a
ahead.
quick question. What happened between 1908 and 1932? Like, do you know anything about that period?
Well, the army took over in 1926. They took power. But between that time, there was a kind of, they tried to establish a republic, but it never really worked out. Socially and economically, the country was very poor. And there were there wasn't a firm hand. And since there was such a revolution between the people, this kind of helped and led to the dictatorship. The dictatorship that ruled in Portugal under Antonio Salazar, as any dictatorship, is not good, and people were, limited in everything. But he was financially very stable and tried to stabilize Portugal as much as possible in the financial sense. And we were a prosperous country at the time. Once the dictatorship ended, the country became very poor for a number of years and had great difficulties. And actually, now going into the age of discoveries, it's kind of interesting because in the 15th century, that's when the age of discoveries started, and that's when Portugal built its first caravel. We were actually one of the richest countries in the world because from the 15th to the 18th century, Portugal had one of the biggest colonial empires. We actually had colonies and territories, you can see on this map, everywhere in the world. And when Antonio Salazar took over as a dictator, he maintained most of these colonies, and when the dictatorship ended, most of these colonies were lost to Portugal. So the first territory that was conquered by the Portuguese was Ceuta in the north of Africa in 1415. And until 1999, we maintained the very last territory, which was Macau. So from 1415 until 1999, Portugal had territories under its domain. In parts of the world. The very last one, Macau, returned to China in 1999. So that also is one of the reasons why Portuguese is one of the world's most spoken languages. I believe it's probably the fifth, I think, mostly because of Brazil, naturally, and a lot of Africa. So the only territories that are overseas that actually remain under Portuguese rule are the Azores and the Medeta Islands. And these remain under Portugal because they were populated by a number of Portuguese. And Lisbon decided to change their constitutional status from overseas province to autonomous regions. So the Azores and the Medeta Islands today function as autonomous regions. They have their own governor, they have their own legislation, so to say. Some of the things are the same as in continental Portugal, but a few others are different, especially, for example, now with this COVID situation, they actually have separate rules and do things in a different way than continental Portugal and have certain obligations that are done differently. So now going actually off into our islands. We can start with the Medeta Island. It was discovered in 1419 by navigators that were driven by a storm, and they landed on this very first island, which they called Porto Santo. Porto Santo means safe harbor. So they named it Porto Santo in gratitude for surviving the shipwreck, which makes perfect sense. And the island started to be populated in 1420. Shortly after the Medeta Island was discovered, Medeta means wood. And it was called Medeta because the island was actually covered by amazing tropical forests. And unfortunately, a lot of the wood was burned to build houses and to cultivate. And during the 15th century, Medeta became the world's greatest producer of sugar. And afterwards, in the 17th and 18th century, was when the Medeta wine became one of the main products of the islands and still is today. The Medeta wine is a fortified wine, a bit similar to the port wine. Here in this picture, you can see its cute little house, which are typical houses of a locality called Santana in the Medeta Island. And when you see this picture, it just, I mean, if you recognize it, it says Madera. It's super typical, and you see a bunch of these houses in that area. This is a picture of Porto Santo. It is an absolutely gorgeous beach island. It has nothing to do with the Medeta Island because it's very barren. It's kind of desert looking. The mountains don't have much green to them, and it's not that far. It's a 20-minute flight or a 2-hour ferry ride. There is a boat that goes from one to the other. Usually it's a daily ferry in the summer, morning and afternoon. And it's absolutely pristine. It's gorgeous, gorgeous, transparent water, very clear sand, absolutely beautiful. And a lot of the Portuguese go here for vacation during the summer months. It's super popular. Unfortunately, it does not function during the winter months because the water is actually cold in the winter. But in the summer, it's a great, great temperature. And here you can see two other very characteristic points of the Medeta Island. On the left side are what we call the levadas, and these are trails now, but they were waterways that were built and controlled to irrigate the land for farming. But now most of these are simply trails that are set and marked, some easy, some very, very difficult. And the island is absolutely full of them. So it's super fun to do a few levadas on the island and explore this gorgeous natural habitat. And to the right, this is a fruit market. There are so many different tropical fruits on the islands that are original to the island and that you do not find in the Azores and you do not find in continental Portugal. Different types of bananas and fruits that this green one here in the middle, I don't remember the name. It's absolutely delicious and super different. And now we'll go off to the Azores. The Azores are in the mid-Atlantic. They are 9 islands, and they were discovered in 1431.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. Where can you, on a map, where is Madera?
Oh, sorry, I should have told you. Madera is, so if you're looking at Africa, it's to the left south. It's very close to the Canary Islands. It's warmer on the Medeta Islands because they are further south, closer to the equator and closer to Africa. And it's a bit cooler on the Azores Islands because they are mid-Atlantic. It's a 4-hour flight from the United States or from Canada, from the eastern coast, obviously, to São Miguel, the capital of the Azores Islands. So this is mid-Atlantic, and they are 9 islands. And I was saying that they were discovered in 1431. The first island to be discovered was Santa Maria, and they became populated by the Portuguese from the Alentejo and the Algarve in 1432. So they started to populate these first few islands and cultivate oranges. The last 2 islands, Corvo and Flores, were discovered in 1450. And these islands are on 3 different tectonic plates. So basically, this provides Portugal with a vast ownership of land, even though underwater, and also helped Portugal to control possible attacks from the sea, which is seen on these islands by many of the forts. There's like 160 something forts built on all of these islands to protect and to control. The third island, Terceira, is actually third in Portuguese. So that was not a very creative name. But anyway, the capital of Terceira, Angra do Heroísmo, was actually the capital of Portugal for 15 years in 1830, which is pretty interesting. In the 1800s, the oranges that were all over these islands caught a disease, so they had to create other means of agriculture and economy. So they introduced tobacco, coffee, pineapple, teas, and cows to the islands. And to this date, St. George, this island right here that's very long, has the only coffee plantation in Europe, the only one. And São Miguel has the largest tea plantation in all of Europe. And to this day, they continue to function. Here you can see the absolute beauty of the Azores. And this is a very typical picture of the greenery that you will see on the islands, the lagoons, they're absolutely gorgeous. And this is the place of choice for nature lovers, for sure. Hiking, biking, horse riding, just enjoying the views. Also, one of the best places in the world for whale lovers and for whale watching. There are a number of different species of whales found here. They usually go here to birth because the waters have a better temperature. And in the summer months, you can find numerous whales, and it's absolutely fascinating to go and observe them. And the cows. So you can't go to the Azores without having a picture of a happy cow, which is what we call them, on one of these green fields. These cows provide Portugal with the best butter, the best cheese, the best milk, and most of us try to buy it actually from the Azores because they're absolutely delicious. And now we're off to continental Portugal, the north, the Doru Valley, and Porto. So Portugal, for such a small country, has a very different geographical aspect from north to south. The north is much greener, and that's kind of why this map has a greenish color to the north and then different colors to the south. So very mountainous, very green, natural parks, springs, rivers, waterfalls. And this is really where it all started. So Guimarães, which is this castle here, this was the birthplace of Afonso Vi, which I had mentioned previously, the very first king of Portugal. And also in the north, there's a great religious tradition. It's the area of Portugal with the largest number of sanctuaries. And to this left, you have the sanctuary of one of the towns further north, which actually I'm from, Viana do Castelo, and I got married in this temple here. It's absolutely gorgeous and very similar to the Sacré-Cœur in Paris. So a beautiful site and an amazing ocean view and city view from this mountaintop. And to the right is a very typical folklore outfit of one of the festivities held in August in this town for a whole week. This is called the Our Lady of Agony festivity. Most of the festivities are patron saints or Our Lady or of something or other, which ends up becoming kind of a type of patron saint as well. Also, the north of Portugal is known for its Vino Verde, which is the green wine. And you may have heard of a brand called Casal Garcia, which is very popular. In the north of Portugal, you also have the Doru Valley, which is very well known now for its wine and for being the place where the port wine grows, the grapes used to make the port wine grow. Also, this is an absolute beauty because in about 1756, these fields of these terraces that were man-built to be able to produce, to plant the vineyards and produce wine here, they were created at that time, and they allowed for this amazing view and this beauty in an area that is a valley, which is gorgeous. And this isn't seen anywhere in the world. And you can see on this map, the red part here, this is the actual UNESCO World Heritage Area that's defined here, the very heart of the Douro. The river comes from Spain, and it goes all the way to the city of Porto, where it meets the Atlantic Ocean. So although the wine, oh, here you can see the absolute beauty of the scenery, and this is the most wonderful thing you can do in the Douro Valley, a cruise to observe the beauty and to see these terraces filled with vineyards, absolutely gorgeous. And although
especially when they give you port and cheese while you're sitting on the chair on the front deck of the boat, that's kind of nice too.
That is, you had that experience.
That
is amazing. Although the wine the grapes and the wine is produced in the Douro Valley, It got the name Porto because it was sold to all corners of the world from the city of Porto. And here you can see the boats here, the Rebelo boats. These are the boats where the barrels of port wine would come into the city. And this is called the Ribeira of Porto, which is, Ribeira means by the river. So this is the downtown historical area of Porto. On the opposite side of this Ribeira is the city of Gaia. And the city of Gaia is where all the wine cellars are. So that's where the barrels were placed to age. And then they were bottled and sold from this city everywhere in the world. And I believe, yes, we are done with the north. And I'm really just trying to give you a little bit of each region because there's so much more we could talk about, but just to, spark your interest and get you to understand a little bit more about the different regions. So now we're off to the center and Lisbon. The center of Portugal is a very, very large area. It goes from the coast to the interior. And the center has a very mountainous, picturesque look to it, with a lot of villages made of granite and schist, which you can see in this picture here. These beautiful towns are extremely typical to the interior center of Portugal, so this area here. And along the coast, from Porto to Lisbon, there are a lot of fishing villages, and this is one of them, called Nazaré. You may have heard of Nazaré because of McNamara and his gigantic wave and surfing. Also, Nazaré is known for its fish drying. So, and there's a lot of fishermen in this town. It's a very, very old fishing village. The fishermen would catch the fish. The fish is opened down the middle, opened up, salted, and dried. So the fish here is literally drying in the sun, and that's how it's conserved. This is also very typical for us that we eat so much codfish, but the codfish was always conserved in this way, salted and dried. Also, in the center of Portugal, there are numerous UNESCO World Heritage Sites, lots of Templar history, convents, monasteries, and here you have the Batalha Monastery, which is absolutely gorgeous and well worth a visit. Also, the University of Coimbra, one of the oldest universities of Europe, and the Fado of Coimbra. There's Fado in Lisbon, there's Fado in Coimbra, there's Fado in Porto, which is a little bit similar to Lisbon, but the Fado in Coimbra is different. The Fado in Coimbra is only sung by men, and it started as a serenade for the ladies, for the girlfriends and that sort of thing, and still to this day is only sung by men. Also, something very, very typical from the center of Portugal are convent sweets. And why are they called convent sweets? Because the nuns used to iron their habits and put egg white on them to stiffen them and to make them very, very hard. So they were left with a lot of egg yolks. And they decided to make something of them, and they added sugar to the egg yolks. Well, you can't imagine the number of convent sweets they came up with. Puddings and cakes, and it's, it just, don't think about your cholesterol. They're absolutely delicious. They're bombshells, but there's a festivity in November every year, which we always look forward to. It's in the Alcobaça Monastery, which is absolutely gorgeous. So this monastery is literally filled with counters and pastry shops with all of these delights. So it's madness. And now we're off to Lisbon. So Lisbon
what's your favorite, Paula?
Favorite convent suite?
Yeah.
Okay. There's one that's called Siricaya. Siricaya is actually very typical to the Alentejo region, and it's delicious. It's egg yolks, sugar, and a bit of flour, and it's cooked in a flat pottery plate and in the oven with cinnamon on top. Absolutely.
Butter?
No, I don't think there's any butter in it. Probably oil, a bit of olive oil, because that's very typical. There's another one that I love, which are the found in Aveiro, which are these little egg covered with a communion host type shell. I think you had one of those, or I must have given you
Sure, I
something.
did. I
Yeah,
feel like I've eaten my way
it's,
through the Convent Sweets when I was
it's
there.
absolutely delicious. And that's also curious. Those that are found in Aveiro, Aveiro is shortly below Porto, the city of Porto, and those ovos moles, so soft eggs of Aveiro. Um, the communion host on the outside of these was also something introduced by those naughty nuns, and I say naughty because they weren't supposed to have sweets, and they had communion hosts, and they put a little bit of this egg mixture inside the two bits of communion host and would hide them in their pocket and make believe they were taking communion to just enjoy these sweets, and that's how they came up. So fun little stories. So when we go off to Lisbon, there's a number of beautiful narrow streets, cobblestone streets, vintage shops to visit. And in Lisbon, you have a number of different types of architecture. So somebody can just, decide to go explore the city with different themes. They can choose bohemian nightlife. They can choose the city of Fado. They can choose literary Lisbon, Roman Lisbon, Baroque, Manueline. And obviously there are specialized guides on all of these topics, and even street art now. There's so much street art in the city, which is so well done that will make for an excellent visit. And it's a perfect city to visit by foot or by tram or from the river, which is this picture here. So a sailing along the river is absolutely gorgeous, especially at sunset. So the suggestions are absolutely endless. And now off to the Alentejo and Algarve. The Alentejo is the largest area of Portugal, and it's yellowish here in this map because it's a bit drier. And this picture really depicts what the Alentejo is all about. The most part of the Alentejo, the southern part, are these unending fields of olive trees, cork oak trees, wheat, numerous pastures for sheep, for cows. So absolutely beautiful, beautiful scenery. The northern part of the Alentejo, further up here, is a bit more mountainous, slightly, not like the north of Portugal, but slightly more mountainous. And the coast are absolutely gorgeous beaches. So here you can see the coast is absolutely pristine. There aren't that many hotels along the coast. It's protected a national area, so it's not allowed to build anything on the beach. And the northern part, this is an example of many fortified small towns that you can find, like one that Michael loves, which is Evremont. It's absolutely adorable.
It is awesome.
And this one here, also another beautiful town, Monserrate, absolutely gorgeous towns all over the interior of the Alentejo. Also in the Alentejo, there's a lot of Arab influence, and that's found in the AL on the name of many of the towns, also in the pottery and the food. So another thing is the whitewashed houses. All of these were Arab influences that came from the Moors to Portugal, and that stayed. So and the Alentejo is the place of choice for many Portuguese to go and enjoy some R&R to recharge, because that's where all of our time is very, very slow, and lunches take forever. A lunch in the Alentejo starting around 12 and finishing at 5 is absolutely normal, with lots of wine added to it. Our favorite wines are from the Alentejo, mine anyway. They're a bit stronger, but they're absolutely delicious. And now we're in the Algarve. So this is the Algarve. Very typical rock formations along the ocean, beautiful ocean scenery. And the Algarve is where in the 15th century, the Portuguese sailed off to discover the world. Now it's filled with beautiful hotels, great seafood, absolutely delicious seafood, and fish, grilled fish, the best thing to enjoy, and the amazing sunsets. And what we'd like to share with you are some of our simple pleasures in Portugal, those special moments that will not let you forget this perfect place. And starting off with this is Edgar in this picture. I didn't mention Edgar is also part of the team, to my left, actually to my right in the picture, but anyway. He absolutely loves patron saint festivals, and he goes to as many as he can. And this is a picture of the Saint Anthony festivities in Lisbon, which take place on the 13th of June. And what do? We go around in the city on these cobblestone streets near the castle, all decorated and fun. And everybody on every corner is selling sardines, beer. So the sardines, you have them on a slice of bread, grilled and on a slice of bread. And most of the time, you may just eat them with your hands. Or the sandwiches made with a pork steak and mustard and mayonnaise. And then another thing that is absolutely delicious is either sangria or red wine in one of these clay mugs, the typical pottery that is just, traditional and fun. Another simple pleasure, enjoying a glass of wine or a cocktail on one of the amazing sky bars in Lisbon and enjoying this gorgeous, gorgeous view. Porto also has amazing sky bars to enjoy, and this is something that we all love to do. Francesinha, Michael had one of these when he was in Porto.
Can I make a suggestion? If anyone does not want to gain 10 kilos, don't go out on a foodie tour with Edgar. It is an all-day affair, and I'm pretty sure it's about 450,000 calories. It's awesome.
I would say don't think of dieting if you're planning to come to Portugal. Forget that.
No, definitely not.
It's a big no. So this sandwich that you're seeing here is something, it's like a bombshell. So this is a steak with sausage, with cheese, with egg, with 2 or 3 slices of bread and all that in the middle. And then this sauce on top, which is usually very spicy, and fries on the side like you need them. But they're great to put into the sauce. So it's just, on its own an experience. Enjoying this in the Ribeira of Puerto, which is that area by the river, is superb.
Paul, you know what? I forget the name of my guide in Porto.
Well,
yes. So we went and we did like a little Convent Sweets walking experience. So we're tasting different ones in little shops, and then I'm already feeling full. We're going to go and have a hot dog.
Oh yes, you had the typical hot dog of Porto.
I did, and it was bursting at the seams. And he's like, "I got one more treat for you." And he shows up, and it's the Franciscan. And I was like, "You've got to be kidding me, right? Like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to eat this thing." So,
but you tried it.
It was. Yes, I did. I got about halfway through it.
And we still had dinner that evening.
We did have dinner that evening. I'm not sure how.
It wasn't a huge dinner. It was a light dinner, but we had dinner.
We did. Yes, we did.
Another simple pleasure, and personally one of my favorites, is to enjoy your time when on vacation and enjoy staying at a beautiful hotel with a beautiful view and just staying in your bathrobe a little bit longer, having breakfast in bed, and making time to enjoy vacation and not just run off quickly. And for sure, a tram ride, either in Lisbon or in Porto, a tram ride is a true simple pleasure, because there are things you see on the tram that you don't see in a car. You go down these narrow streets, you can observe the tile on the buildings, which is absolutely beautiful, and the clothes hanging in usually some underwear as well, because that's super typical in these areas of Lisbon, and enjoy a pastel de nata. And I wish I could send one to you. Because I have one here with me, and we always have these with a little bit cinnamon on top.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, this is not a nice thing to do. I know. But I would love to send this to you. It would be great if we could, just do that Star Trek thing, and it would
send us the recipe anyway.
Yeah, it's actually something that can be done here. And there are actually virtual courses of how to make your own pastel de nata. This is super, super typical. But yeah, it's not a difficult pastry to make. It's puffed pastry on the outside and a simple custard in the middle. And it's so, so popular. It's something that you can't leave Portugal without trying. Enjoying a picnic. I'm a fan of picnics. I grew up with picnics as a young girl. I grew up in the United States and in Connecticut, and my parents would always on the weekends have picnics. And I love picnics. So doing a picnic in Portugal in the countryside is also an absolute pleasure, or on the beach as well. Also very fun. Enjoying the vineyards, biking in the vineyards, hiking in the vineyards. It's so relaxing and so simple. And just enjoying the beauty of the different colors of the vineyards. I'm a fan of the fall. I absolutely love the fall because of the different colors in the trees and the leaves. And growing up in the New England state, I loved seeing all of this different changing of colors and changing of seasons. And the fall isn't so demarked here in Portugal because we don't have those trees, just in some areas, very few. But in the vineyards, it's very visible. And I live outside of Lisbon in the countryside. So in the autumn, when you see the vineyards changing colors from red to orange to yellow, it's just absolutely beautiful. And to just enjoy that simple pleasure is wonderful. Also, using organic farm products and enjoying delicious meals. This is something that is so easy to do all over the country because there are so many organic farms. There are so many delicious products. And here in this picture, you can see that we have here a very typical, we call petiscos, which are like Portuguese tapas. You can see scrambled eggs with asparagus. Super, super typical to enjoy as a petisco, as a light snack or meal. Some chicken soup. Who doesn't love chicken soup? It's comforting. And an amazing cheese. This one isn't from the Azores Islands. It's from the center of Portugal, which is also a great place for getting the best cheese. Some cornbread, some great wine. This pottery here is traditional Alentejo pottery, painted by hand, and all of them are usually different with different style paintings, typical of the traditions of the Alentejo, the farming. And here, this is a typical clay pot that is used to grill sausage. And we can do this inside the house on a table, and it's absolutely delicious. This bottle that's behind here is kind of a type of, it's called burning water, agua ardente. It's like a type of cognac or brandy, you can say. This is an old one, that's why it's a bit yellowish, which are the best ones. And a little bit of this on the bottom of the pot, you light a match to it, and you just watch the sausage grill. It's delicious. So definitely something you want to enjoy. This is an adorable, simple pleasure that you can have made and surprise a special someone. These are called lovers' handkerchiefs, so lenço dos namorados. And there are many stories. It's not really well known how these came to be, how they actually started. They were made by a lower class and usually had a lot of errors in the Portuguese that was written. And one of the stories that I like the most is they believe that when a young lady was smitten to a young man and he did not make the first move, she would embroider one of these lovers' handkerchiefs and she would have it delivered declaring herself to him. And I have one here, which is really beautiful. This one is super, super simple. And it just says, bon amor. You can't really see it because it appears, I think, backwards, but it's good love. And that's the only thing it says. But what's typical of these are the hearts. This one is very, very typical because these are the most typical designs that are found in these. And these can be made nowadays. It's very common to make them with the names of the person who's offering, or a date, or a special phrase, like you can just create your own phrase and have it embroidered. And It's something so simple and so absolutely special. Enjoying the beach in the winter. That's something that.
Wait. Did you give one to your husband, or did he give one to you, or both?
No, this one actually was from my aunt.
Ah.
Because that's another story as well. I like the lovers' stories, but one other story is that mothers actually could have made these for their sons, or sons or daughters. They could have made these for their children, because there are many phrases that you can write on them. And this one was my aunt that actually gave to me, because she makes these. She makes T-shirts with these embroideries, and she participates in a lot of arts and crafts shows, and does all of that. So that's how I got mine. And enjoying the beach in the winter in Portugal is a true simple pleasure. It's secluded, there's no one there, just a wonderful place to relax. And the Comporte Beach, which is this one here in the picture, is about an hour and 15 minutes from Lisbon. It's got the longest extension of sand, it's never ending, and it's just beautiful to walk and enjoy the gorgeous view of the ocean. Another fun and very, very simple pleasure is making goat cheese from the very beginning. Fresh goat cheese, wood oven cooked bread, and enjoying the experience with the family is super fun. Watching the sunset from a castle anywhere, there's castles from north to south, and just enjoying the gorgeous view. This is the castle of Douche, which is about an hour and a half from Lisbon, and a beautiful town to visit, medieval town with adorable little shops and restaurants, and this gorgeous castle. And actually part of this castle is a hotel right now. Enjoying horse riding on the beach, another simple pleasure. This is also the Comporte Beach, and you can see the water is absolutely pristine, crystal clear. It's just not tropical weather, water, tropical temperature. It's a little bit cooler, but manageable. So it's probably about 20 degrees Celsius in the summer months, and it can go to 22, which is very good if it gets up there. Going to a fish market in the early morning, super fun, because you see the interaction between the ladies, the fishermen coming in with the fish. They yell at each other from one side to the other, and then they yell at all of the clients. When I say yell, it's not in a bad sense. It's like trying to get their attention, and saying that what they're selling is better than what their neighbor's selling. And all of this interaction goes on during the early morning, and it also happens in the fruits and vegetable markets as well. Normally they are in different sections. This is a market in the city of, outside the city of Porto, a little bit outside the city of Porto, and it's just a fish market. Sometimes there are separate markets. And this is probably every Portuguese person's most favorite simple pleasure. And these are called bola de Berlim, Berlin balls. And why are they called Berlin balls? Because the Germans brought them to Portugal during the Second World War. And I'm going to be very mean again. I also have one here.
See, I knew you were going to do that. That's not cool.
You knew it. So this is a Berlin ball, and it's kind of like a custard-filled donut, really. Very, very typical too, similar to, a custard-filled donut. So it's the same type of cake-ish dough on the outside, and it's fried, and then it's filled up. And you show this to a Portuguese person, and this screams summer. The Germans that brought these to Portugal, we had a lot of Jewish refugees in Portugal during the Second World War. There's a lot of Jewish heritage in Portugal all over the country. And the Jewish community, they established lots of pastries. They had to work, obviously. So they worked as in pastry shops as bakers, and they started to bake and created these bolas de Berlim in Portugal, and they stuck. They scream summer. And when I say scream, it's literally scream, because when you're on the beach in the summer, you have these sellers of Berlin balls, and they start from one end of the beach, and they're going along the beach the entire way, screaming, bola de Berlim, bola de Berlim. And usually kids and adults, more kids, oh my God, it's there, it's there. So they tell their parents they have to have one of these. They can't live without them. And basically, these are our simple pleasures, and we hope they become your memories, your best memories in Portugal.
Awesome, Paul. That was a trip down memory lane and also inspirational for our next adventure.
Yeah, I'm very hungry now, so thank you.
Yes, and I can imagine, and I wish we were a little bit closer, or if virtually the something came up that we could transport things from one side to the other.
I mean, Haley's in New Jersey. I mean, she can hop on a flight pretty quickly.
You're much closer. This is true.
I mean, Graham is in the UK. I mean, geez, Graham could just be down there in 2 hours.
Also, and now we're going to receive a lot of people from the UK in the coming weeks. Lots of people.
They've just opened up, or May the 17th. It opens up on the green list, and there's only about
the green line from Portugal to the UK. So everybody's I think they bought out all of the hotel rooms in the Algarve and luxury villas, and it's amazing. Everything is sold out.
Graham, have you
the
been
flights have all rocketed. Pardon, Michael?
Yeah, sorry. Have you been to Portugal before?
I've been to Lisbon, and I've been to a medieval castle in Terena, if I've pronounced the name right. Terena. Which I think was where we had I do medieval reenactments as well, and we ended up doing a medieval reenactment in Terena, so that was interesting.
Oh, fun!
Wow,
fun.
That's super fun.
Yeah,
but I haven't explored the rest of Portugal, so that would be interesting to see.
Yes, for sure. You have to think about that. Definitely. Well worth it.
Yeah, Paul, I mean, well, we've talked about a lot of different opportunities to explore Portugal, but it's, you could go there for months at a time. Hopefully people will go for months at a time and explore all the different regions. So, yeah, very cool. Anka, have you been to Portugal yet?
No, I have never been there, but after the presentation, I'd really love to go there. Lots of places you've talked about. Thanks for that.
Oh, you're welcome, Anka, and it would be wonderful. And since one of the things that is interesting about Georgia that you mentioned is the food. I think most of European countries, they have a very big food element to them. And for sure, that's one of the main things. I mean, you could tell by our simple pleasures, more than half of them are food-based. And there's a few that I remembered afterwards that I didn't get to add on, like having snails. I don't personally like snails myself, but it's super typical and super Portuguese to enjoy snails, and the season just started. So people go to the terraces of coffee shops and just, enjoy having some snails with beer.
Yeah, exactly.
Graham or Anka, do you have any questions for Paula or for us?
No.
Yeah, so
it was clear for me.
Great.
Yeah, so with the Azores, there's quite a few islands there. Is it? And they all seem to have something interesting on them, which kind of makes me want to go and visit them all. But is it easy to get around the islands there, or difficult?
Well, it's not the easiest thing in the world, I have to admit. So the easiest island to visit is the São Miguel Island, because of the direct flights from Lisbon. There obviously other islands have direct flights from Lisbon. The Terceira Island and the Faial Island have direct flights from Lisbon. Also Pico. So those four islands have direct flights from Lisbon. Usually what happens, and you can actually visit quite a number of them at the same time, but the tricky thing about the Azores is the weather. So the Azores has it never gets really cold, but the weather can change dramatically in the same day. And it's also known to have like the 4 seasons in the same day. So you can start the morning with a very cold, rainy day, and in the afternoon, right after lunch, it's sun and hot and sunny and warm. But if you're lucky and you have nice weather in the summer months, usually you are. In the winter months, it can be a little bit more difficult. You can go from São Miguel, the main island, and then visit Terceira, the third island, and then from there fly to Pico or Horta, those 3 islands that were closer to the left side on the map. And between those, Pico and Horta, is a ferry ride of about 30 minutes, so that's not so bad. And then between Pico and the St. George Island, it's a ferry ride of about 1 hour, which also can be done. And you can spend the night, but you can also visit as just a day trip. And then the last 2 islands on the left side, which are Flores and Corvo, the last islands to be discovered, if you recall. So Flores only has direct flights from the island called Horta, which is on those 3. So you would have to be in Horta to take a direct flight to Flores. Flores is one of the most beautiful of the 9 islands because Flores means flowers, and it's literally covered in flowers. It's beautiful. But if the weather is not good, the flights will be canceled, unfortunately. So fingers crossed that, you know, in the summer months, usually it's safe. And from Flores, you can take a ferry, which is about 30 minutes to visit Corvo, the other tiny island. So I just didn't mention 2 of them, Graciosa, Gracious, and Santa Maria, the very first one to be discovered. Those 2 poor islands, they're kind of left off. They're beautiful anyway, but they're not so easy. So, you know, the other ones become a bit more popular. The one with the best hotels is São Miguel, without a doubt. The other islands don't have such interesting accommodations as São Miguel, but they are getting better. So in the Pico Island, there are some nice properties, and Terceira Island has also a few nice properties, but most of them are very small, so it's very limited.
Wow,
I
that's
hope
great. Thank you.
But it's definitely worth visiting. And if you have time, imagine if you had 2 weeks, you can really do quite a few islands.
Yeah. So it sounds like the summer's the best time to visit the islands. So to
It
get
definitely
good weather.
is. Yeah, it definitely is. You'll get rain. I mean, if you're 2 weeks on the islands without rain, you're a lucky guy. So you will end up getting some showers. It's very typical. You definitely have to go with that in mind. But it's much better to go in the summer months. From end of May until September, October would be the best.
Paula, how do you like to combine, or do you like to combine all 3, Madera, Azores, Mainland, or do you sort of look at them as all being separate trips?
I wouldn't combine all 3 in one trip unless somebody has like a month to spend.
Sure.
But I would definitely think of combining Continental Portugal with one of the island options, either Madeira or either the Azores. I'm only saying not to combine all of them because it could be a little bit hectic with so many flights, but
Sure.
it would be possible if you just did one of the Azore Islands, for example. Imagine coming from the United States, you can start with São Miguel because you've got direct flights there, and then you could go to the mainland, and then from the mainland you can go and visit the Medeta Island, and then come back to the mainland to depart. That's an example. But I definitely think the islands add value because they're so diverse.
Sure.
And there's scenery that you see there that you don't see in continental Portugal, and then different types of foods as well.
Can you get from San Miguel to Madera directly, or do you have to go back to the mainland?
You have to go back to the mainland.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a killer because.
Yeah, because you're just.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Anyone else have questions for Paula?
No.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Paula, thank you again for sharing your knowledge, your expertise, your wisdom, your teasing us with your food. All of it. We appreciate it, and you know, our team is looking to get over there as soon as we can, and hopefully Graham, Anka, you've been inspired by Paula to put Portugal at or near the top of your list of next places to travel to as well.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for this information you shared with me tonight. Actually, in Georgia, it's night.
Yes. Yeah, what time
Really
is it
good,
there,
thank you.
Anka?
It's 10 o'clock in the evening.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
Okay. Well, thank you for giving us your time as well, because it's not that early.
No.
Yeah, but it was really interesting. So thank you.
I'm glad.
Great. Great. I think we're good. Graham, do you have anything else that you need or any questions or?
No, I think I'm good. Thank you very much. That was
Cool.
really good. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, Paula, thank you. This is being recorded, so we'll make sure that we can share this with those that registered that weren't able to make it.
Okay.
And yeah, we're looking forward to picking back up where we left off in early 2020 and sending more folks to you really soon. So thanks again for all of your time.
Thank you, and cheers to you. This is not Medeta wine, it's port wine. And I'm going to enjoy this with the pastel de nata in a little while. And cheers to everyone. And thank you as well.
Cheers.
Well,
Thank you, Paula.
Paula, thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.